Welcome to another episode of the Illinois High School Boys Basketball Podcast. I'm Brady Roberts with Hardwood Preps, Illinois, and this is episode 3. Today we'll talk about a few different topics. We'll go over the games that I was able to catch this week. We'll jump through some of the teams that have gotten off to some hot starts to begin the new season, and then we'll have an interview with Vince Doran from the Jack Tosh Holiday Classic over at York High School. Friday night, I took in a rivalry matchup between Glenbrook South and Glenbrook North, and Spartans got the best of first two matchups between the two respected schools, and I came away with a lot of high hopes for both teams. It was a fairly close matchup the first half of the game, back and forth, and I really enjoyed watching Nick Taylor, the recently committed forward to Winona State. He's a 6'7" senior, but nonetheless, the Titans fell short in the second half. Spartans ran away with a few different opportunities where they'd cash in on some turnovers by the Titans, and their guys, Josh Fridman and Owen Janulius, really stepped up. There's a lot to like, I'd say, for Glenbrook North this year. Josh Fridman is probably one of the quickest guards in the northern suburbs, one of the elite shooters. He's going to rack up some big-time numbers throughout the season, most likely an all-state candidate. Patrick Schaller was in a little bit of foul trouble there, but between him and Landon Lauder, they were much more of a physical presence throughout the game, getting some big rebounds, converting in some big-time stops down the stretch, finished the game on a stronger note, and that's when they really kind of solidified the victory. Sam Lappin is another senior guard I enjoyed watching for Glenbrook North. I think the Titans will be perfectly fine down the stretch. The right guys are in the right spot. They're not making things super complicated. They're just off on some passes here and there, and they're a team that really relies on team balance throughout the scoring. And you could tell that they were pressing towards the end to really get back within a few possessions, and it definitely hurt them, forced them to turn the ball over more than their usual. Between Nick Taylor, Nate Casher, JP Hubbard, Pat Benedict, Anistis Hajistamalulu, and Daniel Devine, who was one that came off the bench. Phil Ralston's got a group that is going to make another big splash once these guys get on the same page. Saturday, the Pirates, coming in ranked in the top 25 by Aaron Britton in 1A, were supposed to play Rockford Christian, pretty solid 2A program. The game was supposed to start at 12:30, showed up, and they were not playing. So got to stick around and watch the 1A girls from Galena. They actually ended up making it to the state finals last year. They're a good team. They were in a running clock pretty quick once the second half started. They should be another contender to get back to state again this year. So shout out to the Galena girls basketball team. The boys varsity game ended up starting just around 3:15, and it was all Royal Lions the whole way. Christian Cummings and Elijah Doherty were two players that I really liked last year. Got to see them over at the Marengo Holiday Tournament. Both of these junior guards had improved a ton. Their scoring from the perimeter was significantly better than what I saw last year. Free throw shooting, so many different weapons that this tandem really brings to the table. And then they have another sophomore, 6'2", Jaden Williams, that was a nice complimentary player for Rockford Christian. I will not be surprised to see this team in the rankings sooner rather than later. As far as Galena, Connor Glasgow is listed at 6'6", jack of all trades, does a lot to keep this Galena team competitive. I'm a little worried to see what the supporting cast looks like. I know Caden Hauber he's one of their senior guards, and he actually had a football injury midway to the end of the year, and it sounds like he's about a month away from getting back into the swing of things. So the Pirates, I'm sure, will miss him a little bit down the stretch, but with the conference and the schedule that they'll be playing in, I'm sure they'll be racking up some wins down the stretch. The final game I checked out on Saturday was at the Eastland Shootout. It was the host Cougars taking on top 10 ranked Byron. They're ranked number 7 by Aaron Britton's 2A rankings. And I really enjoyed watching both of these teams play. Ryan Tucker, a 6'2" senior, and Jack Hively is another 6'2" senior. Ryan Tucker kind of put the team on his back to begin the game. very explosive towards the hoop, can make shots, and Jack Hively came out like a madman in the second half. It was fairly close. I believe Eastland was leading the game to start the second half, and Hively just completely took over. He was a real force on both ends of the floor. Byron has another sophomore guard, Kaysen Newton, really good-looking shooter. Eastland has a very young team. They have a junior guard, Adam Awender, Parker Krogman, a 6'3" sophomore, and then they also have a junior guard, Peyton Spears. Parker Krogman is a guy that definitely plays a lot bigger than 6'3", showed some really athletic plays down the stretch, and Adam Awender was the leading scorer for them. So Cougars of Eastland should be another solid team. This next segment is recognizing quite a few teams throughout the state that have gotten off to some hot starts and who are not in the rankings. So without further ado, let's begin with St. Elmo Brownstown. They are located just to the southwest of the Effingham Teutopolis area, and the Eagles are off to a 6-0 start. They ended up picking up 4 wins at the Mulberry Grove Thanksgiving tournament, winning most of those games by a sizable margin. Closest game they had was against South Central, and then they picked up a pair of wins this past week, a 60-50 victory against Neoga, and then they ended up taking the 62-47 win against Tri-County. St. Elmo Brownstown is led by a pair of seniors, Adam Atwood and Jade Schaub. Next up, we have Waltonville, a team that ended up winning the Christopher Thanksgiving tournament. They are headlined by a big man, Gage Peterson. The Spartans ended up picking up, like I said, the 3 victories at the Christopher Thanksgiving tournament, ended up beating Weber 66-54 in the semifinals and knocking off the host Christopher 60-59. And then they picked up a win on Friday against Fairfield 60-53. Moving right along, we have the Pittsfield Saukeys. They come into this week at a 6-0 record. They ended up winning their Thanksgiving tournament, picking up 4 wins against Liberty, Porta, Barry Western, and Payson Seymour. This week they had an impressive 44-42 win against Mendon Unity, and then they ended up knocking off Augustus Southeastern 44-35. Good start for the Saukeys. St. Joe Ogden is next. They were off to a 4-0 start, winning their Thanksgiving tournament. They are headlined by Logan Smith, a 5'10 senior. Coy Taylor is a 5'11 junior. And they also have Tanner Jacob, Brock Trimble, and Luke Landris. Next at 5-0 are the Sullivan Redskins. They ended up starting their season winning the 3 games at the Neoga Thanksgiving tournament. And then this past week, they ended up picking up a solid 57-39 victory against Windsor Stewstraw. And then they ended up winning in overtime at Paris 49-47. This next team mentioned is the only team that's not undefeated. Belvedere North, the Blue Thunder, are 5-1. After losing their first game of the season to Perspectives MSA, 49-48, 1-point loss, they have rattled off 5 straight victories against Morgan Park, Clark, Elgin, beating Rockford Boylan at Boylan, and then picking up a 65-63 win against Harlem. Dixon is the next team, the Dukes, headlined by Darius Harrington and Colin Shanner. This is a team I saw last year over at the Indian Creek Shootout. They had a lot of young talent, but you could tell that the ceiling was high. This year, they've started out with 5 straight victories, beating Illinois Valley Central, East Peoria, Pekin, and then this past week, they picked up a 57-33 win against Kewanee, and then they beat Galesburg on Saturday, 64-37. Another 3A team on this list is the Olney Tigers, as they went and had a very impressive showing at the Lawrence County Capital Classic, where they knocked off Teutopolis on the 24th, and then they ended up taking the title game against the host Lawrenceville Indians 44-40. This past week, they got wins against Robinson, and then they also beat Carbondale 44-39 at the Marion Shootout. Olney will be at the Duster Thomas Holiday Classic in Pickneyville. That'll start on the 26th. They'll have a couple tests here before they enter the holiday tournament season. Tuesday, they will be at Mount Zion, and then they play Bree Central on the 16th of December. That will be at the Greenville Shootout. Ian Winkler, Casey Tommen, Rex Hallen, Colby Redman, RJ Keller, Dirks Weiler, and Ian Panfetti. I will be at the Duster Thomas Holiday Classic. Looking forward to getting to see the Tigers in person. East Moline United Township is next. They are off to a 5-0 start, winning 4 games at the Galesburg Thanksgiving tournament, and then recently picking up a 57-37 win against Rock Island Alleman. They will have Geneseo and Galesburg to start the week, and then they will finish off with a very intriguing matchup as they host DeKalb on Saturday in East Moline. Oak Lawn is at it again. They're off to a 6-0 start as they ended up winning the Spartan Ram Classic, defeating Crete Moni in the title game 67-53. This past week, they picked up an impressive 51-45 win against Hillcrest in Country Club Hills. They are rolling with Corey Lee, Henry Martinez, Dante Montgomery, Jack Dempsey. Should be a fun season for the Spartans. I would expect them to be in the rankings very, very soon. Last team I'd like to highlight are the Schaumburg Saxons. Jason Tucker's group is 6-0 to start the year as they had 4 victories, winning the title game against Naperville Central at the Ridgewood Thanksgiving tournament. They also picked up wins against Glenbard East, and they escaped with a 52-51 win against Hoffman Estates. This should be a group that will make some noise at the Hinsdale Central Holiday Tournament, as their first round game will be against the host Red Devils of Hinsdale Central. If they can knock off them on the first game, they will most likely have DePaul Prep in the quarterfinal round. Tough draw for them, but they'll be battle tested going into the 2024 year. Wrapping up our show, we have a very special guest with us from the Jack Tosh Holiday Classic. Vince Doran joins us. Vince, we're super excited to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me on, Brady. Real excited about it.
Well, let's get right into it. Vince, tell us about your path to getting to where you are today with the Jack Tosh Holiday Classic.
Yeah, I'm really fortunate to still be a part of it. I left Hinsdale South, and we had started a tournament there. We had 16 teams kind of competing, ironically, with Jack Tosh. And then we came over. I got fired from Hinsdale South and got the job at York very quickly, probably within a real short time frame. And we were like, what do we do with all these teams? Basically all our friends were over at Hinsdale South, and we just decided to invite them all over to York and went to 32 teams. And 2013 was the first year with 32. And then it just wound up, we've been able to really have a solid 24 that are always coming back. And there's been some fluctuations. We tend to lose about 2 to 3, some years 4 teams, but we're always trying to replace them. And we have a good list of teams wanting to get in. So that kind of was what helped evolve it into 32 teams. And what I really like about the structure is the staggered start times. If you're a basketball junkie, like I know you are, you could literally see the end of 16 different games. If you wanted to, if you didn't like one game, you can bounce over to, for a coach, it's really a special tournament in regards so you can warm up in our field house. We really try to showcase the facilities, 2 full-size main gyms, and everyone, the Campbell gym is bigger, but that South gym is real special to play into. It gets very loud in there, and I think it's a great environment. So that's kind of where how we came about going to 32 teams and kind of where we're at right now.
And that kind of leads into my next question. So again, this is probably a silly question for a lot of the coaches and people that are a little bit more involved in the administrative roles with it. But talk to us a little bit about how teams kind of come and go, how you get connected with some teams. I know Metamora is a team that'll make their debut this year in the Tosh, and they're significantly out of the area. Like, how does that work in regards to teams kind of fluctuating year by year?
It's a great question. I think you know this as well as I do. I think all the coaches really talk to each other about who's leaving. We even talked to other tournament directors, and we let people know if they're leaving our tournament. Try to help each other out. I think there's only one situation I can think of where we did ask someone to leave, but other than that, we ask all the teams to come back. But Metamora evolved from just talking to one of my friends down in Central Illinois, Scott Adrian, had mentioned. Obviously, we knew they're coming off a state championship, a very from Central Illinois, a powerhouse, and reached out, to their coaches, and they were fantastic. And then obviously adding Downers North too, really whenever someone leaves, we try to replace them with really solid programs. And we are starting to reach a little bit more out of our area. Danny Greaves and Justin Dame from Metamora were great. Jimmy Thomas I've known for a long time. So it could be a relationship that we've known each other for a long time, coached against each other, like Jimmy and I from Downers, or Danny and Justin, I didn't know them hardly at all except watching them play downstate like everybody else. And certainly they're going to be a power again this year. We also added Fenwick and Glenbard East, and there's always, teams are going to leave. We know that. Sometimes we hope to get them back as well, and that happens quite often.
What are some of the changes that you've seen over the years that have helped build the Jack Tosh?
Great question. I think our students at York, the YouTube preview show, I think is special. I don't know that a lot of tournaments do that. I was actually just on a meeting with those students right before we hopped on here talking. They're so excited. They just interviewed Chris Collins from Northwestern the day before they beat Purdue. So they were all saying that they were the reason why Northwestern upset Purdue. And to see the kids get excited, I think our YouTube and our just that we stream all the games with student announcers, I think is unique. We stayed at $5 for attendance. I think we're very fan friendly. Like I mentioned, if you're a basketball junkie, there's no sessions. You can come to the first game and watch all 16 games for $5. And I think that's kind of special because we've seen the AAU in the summer and some of the events that our parents, they're getting charged $15 and they're bringing children to the game to watch their brother or even sister play. It's just gotten out of hand. So our athletic director, Rob Wagner, has just been outstanding with understanding that. And, I think our tournament, I don't know if it's the best, but it's certainly incredibly competitive. What else is special about it? I think this year adding Aaron Britton, in terms of putting the bracket together, the coaches aren't going to vote this year. Aaron and Mark Tomzak, our statistician, are two of the gurus out there. I think everybody who watches high school basketball in our state knows about Aaron and the spreadsheets he puts together. So I think that takes something off the coaches' plate. I think if you are a coach, the coaches make the tournament. Like I said, I don't know if we have the best teams, but I feel like we have the best coaches for sure. They're really always prepared, and they make the tournament go. They make it so easy. They're so prepared, and they do that with everything in terms of getting rosters in, team photos, anything that we need. It's pretty special. And the other thing too, Brady, is just our facilities. I think we have the biggest field house in the state. If you're a coach, you want to warm up, you want to walk through, you want to have your kids shoot around. It's a tremendous environment. I don't think anybody has the facilities that we have. It's a special place. This is our 49th year with the tournament. It's awesome. And even we had Chris Collins on in that interview, that'll be shown, like he was the MVP of the tournament. He's still the single point leader, 54 in a game. So it was cool to hear him, Coach Collins, talk about his experience. But not only like last year, we had Max Struess and Max Christie on the preview show. They both played in the tournament. So I think the history is hard to beat, especially going on that 50th year next year. So, and we're certainly going to make a big deal out of that too.
I loved listening to the preview show last year. The coaches' interviews, it was really well put together.
Yeah, the kids put so much into it, Brady. They're like the show went over 2 hours, and Mr. Brennan Chambers runs the class that they take as a media class, and the kids are just, honestly, it's a huge highlight to be able to work with them and see how talented they are and how passionate that they are. They always want to one up, and I think this year the show we're going to interview the Glenbard West Coach Opaka, and we're trying to get Pierce, Huff, and Durkin, and some of their guys on to talk about it. And they're still playing in college right now, but there's certainly a lot of tradition, a lot of proud alumni, and I think it's special in that way.
That's all good stuff. I love to hear that. It'd be nice if we had a lot more coverage like that. It really builds it up well. Talk to us about some of the volunteers, people that come together to make the Jack Tosh Holiday Classic what it is today.
No, great question. I think we have so many people involved, and it starts with our athletic director, Rob Wagner, and his staff. And then you have parents, you have former players. Our statistician, Mark Tomzak, is as good as it gets. So if you're a coach, you love getting stats at halftime immediately. You love that he posts stuff on the website immediately. We have a team of alumni, usually players that are York alums that help with the statistics. The parents donate. Mr. Martucci has done this for years, donates a ton of water and Gatorade for our concession stands. Gosh, there's so many people involved. The parents are incredible with the hospitality suite. We stream all the games in the hospitality area. Let's be honest, we have guys like Jim Nozzles from Batavia. They come for the hospitality. I mean, that guy likes to eat. So it's we keep him and his 22 coaches happy that are on his bench with our hospitality. And I love to give him a shot. We grew up together, so it's fun to see all these guys and how many people are involved. Gosh, there's so many, and there's so many committed. Jack Tosh was a very longtime athletic director at York that I only got to know for a short time, but boy, he was, in my opinion, laid the groundwork for all of the athletic programs at York. He hired great coaches. He laid out a plan and supported everyone, and especially girls sports. So he's someone that I really admired, and I'm happy to be still involved with the tournament because I want to always see help, hopefully, to get it better every year and improve it. But boy, I can't. There's just so many volunteers. I hate to start naming them because there's quite a few.
Well, and you mentioned, like you said, the tournament year by year, you'd like to see get a little bit better in its own way. Talk about that. What are maybe some goals or some future plans that you'd like to kind of see come into kind of form throughout the years to come?
It's a challenge because what's happened is a lot of the coaches have become friends and they're starting to play each other non-conference games. And we're starting to see, I know Mark tells me all the time, he's like, wow, we've got a lot of, because we guarantee that you're not going to see anyone for those first two games, a league opponent or someone you play non-conference. So that has made it really challenging. So going outside and getting like a Metamora or maybe looking into that Rockford area, reached out to Moline and, would have loved to have gotten them. I've been friends with Sean for a while, and that unfortunately didn't come to fruition. But I do think, like the future of the tournament, I would like to see us go outside of the area a little bit more. But that's hard to do because over the holiday, like Metamora is coming up, they're staying over 4 nights, and certainly that's a challenge financially for a lot of schools too. So we understand that. We've talked about it. I do think, like for the future, probably looking a little bit outside of the area. So it's easier to put the bracket together. It's really hard. Mark and Aaron have a really challenging, daunting task of putting this together this year. And it's easier if you can get teams from outside of the area.
Absolutely. And it just creates more bonds. I think, like you said, the networking is so important with that, but it's nice to have a little bit different styles of play coming in from especially areas of the state that not a lot of people really get to see a whole lot around here. Let's briefly touch on this. I know you've been awful busy. Have you been able to go out and watch any of the teams in person at all this year that'll be participating in the Jack Tosh?
It's so funny. I went over to the Thanksgiving tournament at Riverside Brookfield. I live real close to there, and certainly feel like they have a real nice team. But it's funny you asked that question because our students, reporters, the kids that are announcing the games, they actually go out and watch the teams play. I know
Wow.
last year we had Bobby Hessling would go. He loves Bolingbrook. He was out, talking about, he knows their players. And so I think it doesn't matter if I go see them. It's just the kids that are announcing the games. Yes, I think we have quite a a large grasp on the area. It is hard because I don't like seeding early, and our bracket will come out December 13th. We like to let it shake out a little bit in terms of some teams are not healthy, some teams are getting football players back, and it's really hard. And that's why Aaron and Mark have a really tough job, but it's a real challenge to put the bracket together. So hopefully, I've not personally seen as much this year as I have in the past, but yeah, our students will start going out, especially they have teams that they'll know that they're announcing Stag or they're announcing any of the schools in the tournament. They'll try to watch them on film. They really get into it, so they probably do more than that than anyone.
Now, let me ask you this question. This is a little bit more personal based, but what would you say that out of all the years that you've been a part of this tournament, is this the deepest field that the Jack Tosh has seen?
I think it is. I think when you look at the additions of Metamore and Downers North, they're both threats to obviously go down state and win it all again. That adds to it, but boy, there's just, as you know, you've been there. I do think it's deeper than it's ever been. There's just so many good teams, so many well-coached teams. And if you're a coach and you love basketball, I think you just love watching these guys compete against each other. I know I love it. My wife knows I love the tournament. It's like my reprieve. I'm there pretty much the whole time. I don't miss too many games. So it's I do think that this is the deepest field that we've had.
Totally agree. And I mean, like you said, you talked about some additions. The Chicago Hansberry is another one that is really intriguing with their young talent that they have coming in. And you have some of the teams that have had down years in the past that seemed like they're kind of on the up this year. Minooka, I know, is one team that had a big upset win over Yorkville, who should be one of the favorites, I would say, going into this as well. But they ended up knocking them off on Friday. You've got Nazareth, who's continuing to get better and better every year. St. Francis had a little bit of a down year this year. They're off to a good start. Stag is another one that's got 5 wins. Andrew's competitive again this year. Conant, like you said, Fenwick is new this year, but they're going to bolster up a little bit. Glenbard East has got some talent. Glenbard North is undefeated at the moment. There's not a lot of easy wins, especially for the first round, depending on who you're playing.
Yeah, I think sometimes all the coaches want to win that first one, but sometimes you lose that first one. You're like, oh, maybe I'll get a little breather on that back end, and it doesn't work out that way. It's so deep that you're going to wind up, and I think that's what the coaches love. You might have a down year, and maybe you can win a couple games on, if you move left initially, but it is a really competitive up and down all over the place. And I think like every year we'll see upsets and we'll see teams kind of that use this tournament to kind of springboard them into the second half.
I tell you what, even if you lose that first game, there's a lot of momentum going into the second half of the season. If you win 4 games coming out of that consolation side, that's really helped build some momentum there. All right, Vince, that's really all I have for you. If you guys are unfamiliar with the Jack Tosh tournament, it's a 5-day tournament that's held over in Elmhurst. I've been there twice. Last year I was there for day 1, and I think it was pre-COVID I was there last when I think you were still coaching, Vince, when you guys played Bolingbrook, and the final night is really fun, special to be a part of. Packed gym, great environment. I highly recommend going and checking it out.
Yeah, thank you, Brady. That's the one thing that we have seen. I just want to hopefully finish with this is our crowds have been fantastic, and we expect that to continue this year, especially with bringing in, like you said, I think an even deeper field. And it's a special tournament. I appreciate you having me on and all the work that you do to support the basketball community here at the high school level.
Absolutely. Vince, thanks again for joining us. Keep an eye out for those brackets being released on the 13th of December, and we'll see you at the first day on the 26th at the Jack Tosh Holiday Classic. Thanks again, Vince.
Thanks, Brady. Appreciate it.
That will do it for episode 3 of the Illinois High School Boys Basketball Podcast. Again, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you again next week. Have a good week, everybody.